Alright, Internet. I'm back for, I guess, what would be considered a part two of the conversation about just how I approach loving my wife and my kids. Um, been having people reach out to me with some ideas on loving siblings and so my own siblings, and then just friends. And so I definitely got a couple more ideas about how I want to continue these conversations and just really me monologuing my approach to how I just want to be better at loving everybody and encouraging others to do the same. And so, in that spirit, I'll keep talking about how I approach my love for my wife and my kids. So, part one was pretty much how my approach to loving my wife and the importance of that, and how I believe that that should be the foundation of my love for my children, because there's a trickle down effect. And now, the interesting part about the love that I have for my wife and my children is I remember a conversation, and I brought this up at the first sermon that I gave at church, and I bring this up to people who question my motivations as far as why I do what I do. With my background, it's unique that I would pick to be a teacher because typically they don't make as much as someone who has an accounting background and other things would earn. And so it's interesting to me, my journey to want to love to be around kids and be married and choose to serve. So I'll start with a conversation that I had with my father when I was about 17 or 18. I had just graduated high school, and my dad asked me, like any good father would, say, "What do you want out of life?" He could tell that I really didn't have much direction. At the time, my girlfriend, current wife, Emily, I was just chasing after her, and she was on my mind all the time, and I just loved hanging out with her and hanging out with friends and playing video games. And I did love playing basketball. There were things that I was passionate about, but not anything that um, made any promise of a stronger, more stable future as far as basically direction for my life. And so he asked me, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, but I can tell you one thing. I don't want to join the military," because he was a veteran as well and told me all the blessings that he had had being a veteran in his service. Um, I didn't want to be married because I saw, and my parents were a good example of marriage in my youth, and I just think that I saw that even that with the disagreements that were had, and I looked at it through a pretty selfish lens. I don't want to sacrifice like that. That looks like a pain in the butt. And then I had plenty of siblings. Some were that were a little bit older than me, some were that were a little bit younger than me. And said, I don't want kids. Seems like a headache. There's just so much sharing and not enough caring, or maybe too much caring and too much sharing, and just all of it. And I don't want anything to do with that. Well, I asked Emily to marry me not a year after that, and we were engaged for a little bit. I got married at the ripe old age of 20, like I talked in my last video. And I remember when my wife got pregnant for the first time. And that was a tough time for us because we ended up losing that baby. And it was so interesting for me because I hadn't yet created a relationship with that child that was still in my wife's belly, that I remember feeling such loss after I came to terms with being a father and that nervousness. And I remember just how my mindset changed and how that baby wasn't here yet, but my body had been preparing to be just a better provider and protector. I wish that I could say that becoming married to my wife is the what initiated those feelings first, but it wasn't. She was very much, it was a relationship, we loved being together, and I was still very much a kid myself. But after we had had our first miscarriage, our only miscarriage, um, it was it was something that I wasn't afraid of being anymore. I wasn't afraid of being a father. Not that I sought it still. I still wasn't searching to be a dad. But then when life happened, Emily's mom passed away. We moved back home, and so we're around friends and family, and I kind of just stopped focusing on life again. I ended up having to have some surgeries, so I was off work for a while, and then Emily gets pregnant a second time. And This time she's pregnant with my oldest, William. And when he was born, I just remember being in such awe of just what he looked like. And there was just an aura about him. And I don't know if it was just the miracle of life, or if it was the fact that it was a little bit of me and my wife, or if it was just, I don't know, if it just had me thinking about what a blessing my father was for me when I was growing up, and just all these feelings happened. And I just remember being in such awe of my son when he was born, and how this little person was so dependent on me. And that is when a switch flipped in me, for sure. I immediately took any job after recovering from my surgery, took any job I could have. I started working a factory job that didn't want to keep me. I gave the 90-day temp job, and it was just to get them through a season, and I realized that I didn't have value with them. So I knew I needed to be somewhere where I was valued, and that I could immediately start pushing my family forward to success. That's what made me join the military. And it was funny, after telling my dad just a couple years earlier that I wanted no part of being married and having kids and joining the military, once I got a taste of one, I realized what I had to become for the others. And so joining the military actually became a natural process for me. I'm not going to lie, saying that I joined the military because I'm super patriotic, which I believe that I am. I love this country, and I love that it's founded on Christian beliefs and our forefathers and how they set that up. And I very much believe in the Constitution and people's rights. But I joined for my family, without a doubt. I wanted to be a better provider. I wanted the conveniences of having that favor of being a veteran for my family. I joined because I wanted to serve, and I wanted to serve my family. And my wife didn't want me to at first. She's like, hey, I don't like this. I know that you'll be gone for a long, even if you're not deployed, you'll be gone for long times for trainings. You won't be around as much. And she eventually came to terms with that. And there was some struggles at first with the family, back and forth, and just some frustrations. And then along came Elena through those frustrations. And it was stressful for us. There's a lot of back and forth about, man, now that we're in the military, is this really right for our family? And how stressed I got being away from my kids, and all the struggles that came with that, by trying to find the right balance of, hey, do you want more of my time? Do you need more money? And I definitely think that's when I started to become I got a little bitter, because I realized that the most important part of my process, while I believe the most important thing is presence for a father, sometimes it's tough to have, because what they really need is provisions as well. Like, they need to be provided for. They need to have someone that's going to help make their dreams come true. And while I do my best to put my faith in God, I know that He wants me to be a working man. He wants me to be a strong piece of my community. And that sometimes means that I'm not around every second of the day. And that was a hard thing that I struggled with, especially as my kids were a lot younger, when I wasn't around that much. I eventually transitioned from the short time I had in the Air Force. I transitioned to the Army. And then I went through more training, and I continued that process. And so we moved to Washington, while William and Elena were, I think, were 1 or 2, or maybe it might have been 2 or 3. And I become a little bit more stable. This is definitely what we're doing now. Okay, we've made this decision. And then my twins come along. That is when I was shocked. I remember I wasn't even with Emily at the time, as far as like in her presence. I was gone for a annual training up in Yakima, Washington, where we do a whole bunch of field training to get ready for deployment. And so I'm up in Yakima training. I got my Staff Sergeant Z, my NCO, for supply. We were with our battalion up there doing some training with some Rangers and I think some Canadian Light Infantry. And while I was up there, yes, sir.
Breakfast.
I'll make breakfast as soon as I'm done with this, sir. Thank you for your patience. I love you.
We're not gonna have any breakfast.
Oh, we will have plenty of time, sir. That was Micah. We got a soccer game today when I'm done with this. So, but where was I? Oh, I was up in training, taking care of business, and my wife calls. She's like, "I'm pregnant." I was excited. I was in the talk at training, so all leadership was there. I told my NCO, and they were excited. Obviously, they dogged on me a little bit because the military's just got a darker sense of humor, some tough love, and like I'll hold those jokes. If anyone has any questions about the jokes that happened at that time, they can reach out and I'll let them know over some messenger. I won't say that online, but so that happened, and then a week later, she had her first appointment. We're figuring it out. She calls back again while I have some time. It's twins, and that definitely rocked me a little bit. We had already talked about, hey, we're having a third. Okay, we're probably gonna have to think about changing vehicles because we're gonna have 3 car seats because we're gonna have 3 kids under the age of 4, and this, that, and the other. Well, now all of a sudden we have 4 under 4, and I'm not around all the time, and so we had to change vehicles and do all this and that, and it ended up being one of the greatest things to ever happen to me. I remember a video that I got of my wife as she was in the last stages of her pregnancy with the twins, and she just had such a heart for all of our children all the time. I was so blessed to have such a good mother on my team for my children. And I remember I got a video, I can't find it, I had it on Facebook for the longest time, of her just laboring through one last trip she wanted to celebrate William and Elena before Micah and Zachary, my twins, showed up. And so she wanted to go to the Tacoma, I think it was the Tacoma Zoo or the Olympia Zoo. I forget which zoo it was, but it was somewhere in northern Washington. And she had just lugged around her 8-month pregnant body with her sore feet and her swole ankles, and I got a video of her just, she thought I was making fun of her, but I was so in love with her in that moment on how she was carrying 2 in her belly and then pushing around 2 in the car. Well, I was pushing around the 2, but she really needed the support from the giant stroller that we had, and so she ended up pushing as well, and it was just so tough on her, but she always had such a love for them. And that's where it all comes down to me. I couldn't imagine loving anybody more than my wife and my kids. For me, it's such a point of unconditional love that I just want the world for them. And there's some passages I want to share from the Bible with you that focus on being a loving father and a stern father, and how the relationship with your partner should really feed into that, because the support that you give to your partner, especially husbands to wives, is such a foundation for the love that your children will receive that I couldn't imagine doing it any other way. And so if I remember these correctly, I think I'm going to start with, let's see, we'll do Psalms first. I think this one's out of Psalms 127, verses 3 through 5. So there we go. First one here. Children are a gift from the Lord. They are a reward from him. Children born to a young man are like arrows in a warrior's hands. How joyful is the man whose quiver is full of them. He will not be put to shame when he confronts his accusers at the city gates. I love that. I like a lot of references to being a warrior in that path, because it resonates with me. I found purpose and direction in my youth becoming a husband and a father and a soldier. And I love anything that references that. And I just understand it. I imagine being armed with the greatest arrows in a quiver, and they're your children. I think that's such a fantastic passage. Then I go on to, I think it's Ephesians 6:4. Not that one yet. Ephesians, here we go. Ephesians 6:4. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger by the way you treat them. Rather, Bring them up with the discipline and instruction that comes from the Lord. This one kind of makes me chuckle a little bit when it comes to frustrations or calm. I am much calmer than my wife. I like to say this. I'm not as passionate as my wife is about a lot of things, and so there's a lot of conversation and flack that I get a lot about that from her, because she's a little bit more high-strung than I am, a little bit more passionate, like I like to say, a kinder way of saying it, and so the volume in her voice might change a little bit more than mine, and so there's just, I don't know. I think when it comes to the approach of the children, I am a big kid myself too, so sometimes I get in trouble. Like, the wife has a process that we're all at the store. All 5 of us, including myself, sometimes need to grab the cart and just behave. We're not running and hiding and playing tag and that, but I'm just a big kid. I love my children so much, and it's just the best part of my day. And so sometimes I blurry the lines between being a father and being a child myself, but I think that when I share that grace with my children, it just makes my relationship with them stronger. Does my wife pull me back every once in a while on the leash, say, hey, it's time, you got to be tough on them now? And I am, but there's that discernment that God tells us we should have that says, hey, make sure you're just loving on them, and you show them how to do the right thing, and they're going to know how to do it, and they're going to remember that forever. And so I just love that so much. And so I guess the last thing that I'm going to share with you is actually, I got permission from the author to share this. It happens to be my father, Bill Hefner. And so there's a poem that he made years ago called Just Like Every Boy, and it talks about how every boy can become a father, and that fantastic potential to be a leader and really a follower of God, and how we can raise up the next generation to do the same. And so here it goes. And this is, inspired by Proverbs 22:6, which I'll read after the poem. So we go. Just like every boy. Like every boy, I've played some sports, and oh, how I had fun. Competition got me high, even higher when I won. And like every boy, I had my dreams, but I never realized fatherhood would come along and be my biggest prize. So when I got it figured out, everything I had was nothing more than second best, no topping being dad. Now all the thrills of victory will never match the joy of knowing I can be a dad just like every boy. And so after reading that, I definitely, because it's heavy on my heart when I mention about being a dad, because being a teacher, I see, and being in other positions that I've had throughout my life, I see some children that go without that love of a father. And if you guys listen to this video and you're a dad, you're going to be a dad, you've been a dad for a while, maybe you're a grandpa. You can never go wrong by telling your kids, your grandkids, how much you love them every chance you get. Hugs and kisses, lots of love for everybody. And you can never go wrong. There's never no such thing as an overdose of that. Okay? So then that poem was inspired by Proverbs 22 verse 6. Direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it. I know I am a direct result of the direction I got from my father. My wife doesn't like it sometimes because I also have the kind of same sense of humor, a little darker than his, I think, but a lot of the same sense of humor, and just how I approach life. Wanting to serve. I think there's some blessings in that, but I can see why some of the things that she gets frustrated with, because my temperament isn't always exactly where she'd like it. She'd like me to be a little bit more serious sometimes, and maybe a little less serious at others. And so I'm still working on that. I'm a work in progress, trying to be a good soldier, do what I'm told. But I also give kind reminders to my wife, say, hey, don't worry about that being that neck that some sayings say that a wife is, to be able to direct a husband. You just worry about being that wonderful crown that God blessed me with. And you continue to bless me and being a multiplier by giving me these beautiful children. And I'm thankful if a parent of one of my students happened to watch that. I'm thankful for you I'm thankful for having your student in my classroom, because guess what? They're getting love from Mr. Hefner. I promise you that. Okay? I want to make sure that everyone that crossed my path, if they need a hug, they're getting a hug. If they need a kind word, if they need a bunch of kind words. I know that there's some students, whether they're in my classroom or not, whether they're in the elementary or not. I don't care if you go to Quincy or not. If I see someone that needs an encouraging word or some love or a hug, I want to be there to do it, because I have seen the products of people that go without that, and it's not something that I would want to be associated with. I see what happens when there's lack in love and care, and it's not something that I will settle for. So that is my approach to being a father and hopefully being a loving husband. It's still something that I'm working on every single day, trying to die to self, because being selfish is easy, and being a protector and a provider and a husband and a father and try to be a good teacher and just a good male role model. It's tough. You can't be that and be selfish. You just can't. And so I guess with that, I'm going to sign off for today. I hope you guys have a great day. I love you. Jesus loves you. And again, if you guys got any comments or anything like that, reach out. I'd love to continue. I'm going to keep continuing this dialogue as you guys reach out. If you do anything on YouTube, let me know. I'm paying attention to that, seeing I haven't had any comments specifically on that platform, but if I see anything, hey, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to talk about it, okay? Like I said, I love you guys. Have a great weekend.